Hey guys, Nick here, and today we will be getting into part 24 of What If Madison's Family Joined Rick. Now, in the last episode, we had the encounter with the Saviors, the tank being a very, very important item in the factor of last episode, and, unfortunately, still a few casualties. And Negan was one of them. How will the rest of the Savior arc go, with Simon being the only leader man in charge? We'll find out right now. Simon at the Sanctuary is furious that they are leaderless. The Saviors are leaderless, and honestly, doesn't know what to do. He is so mad, he is banging his fist on the table so hard that it's causing holes in the table. That's how mad he is. Pete, being around, tries to calm Simon down and saying that retreating was the best thing, but gets interrupted mid-speech with a punch to his jaw. But Pete, not being the wimp that we know him to be in Season 4, just takes this and says that if they had tried to fight back at the clearing, Rick and them basically stole the opportunity that they had. They did everything right up until that point. It was Morgan who really caused it, and they need to come up with a plan, and they can't go barging in recklessly or they'll die, and they'll end up just like Negan and all the other Saviors. Simon finally starts to calm down, a little, knowing Simon, and says, well then what do you suggest that we do? Being the smart one and all, and we'd expect Simon to say something like this. Pete then suggests, instead of the Saviors that they got going in recklessly, and not even about going recklessly in at all, call the entire Savior force. He's talking about the Saviors from Satellite Outposts and the Sanctuary and everywhere that there is Saviors. Then it will be a slaughter. There's no way that Rick and his people have the numbers to take them all on. Simon actually thinks for a minute and is like, you know what? Even though this might still make us lose numbers, it's a pretty legit idea. So they ultimately go through with it and gather the entire army of the Saviors, which we see in Season 8, because we still have that number, obviously, along with the main ones, which I will include here. Simon and Pete, obviously, along with Megan, Tara, Morales, Laura, Regina, Jared, Arat, and Gavin. Of course, like Justin and other small ones, but these are the main ones, besides the small ones that you guys should really focus on. Anyways, they make their way towards Alexandria for a revenge stand and to avenge Negan. Back at Alexandria, because Rick and their group, remember they split off in last episode into two groups, Enid asks where Carl is, because he was with them. Lori then explains everything about what happened. The lineup, the tank, Negan dying, Morgan saving them all, the last guy breaking Daryl's hand, and then, on his death after Alicia shot him, shot Carl in the eye, but he is at Hilltop, and will hopefully be okay in the hands of Madison and everybody else at Hilltop. Enid is of course upset at this, but knowing the impending danger of the Saviors, because there's still going to be a huge bunch of them coming this way, she can't risk going to Hilltop because she'd probably just end up getting herself killed or kidnapped. So she has no choice but to stay here and help support the people at Alexandria for when the Saviors do arrive. Meanwhile, Daryl is getting his broken hand tended to by the likes of Denise, and it wouldn't be like broken, I feel, from Lucille, but it would be injured something awful, because we know how strong Lucille was. It was even able to make Abraham, the tough guy, bleed at the top of his head from one strike. Anyways, Rick then, after all this, says that they need to come up with a plan for whenever the Saviors get here. They could just make a stand, maybe put the vehicles in front of the gates, and then, like, use them as cover and then, just fire. But they need to come up with, like, a good plan. Because if the ridiculous number of saviors that they believe is still out there is true, plus the ones that were in the clearing, they can't risk being not careful. Then Deanna offers something of which we would definitely see the most dramatic change of character for Deanna, in terms of ever. She recommends, what if they hide the tank and all the vehicles in tarps? It'd be like you couldn't even tell where they were or anything like that. And then no one will ever know where the tank is and won't even be able to get their hands on it. And then they can all hide in the houses and get every single weapon that they can get their mitts on from the armory, hide in the houses, and then when the saviors come in, before they even get a chance to do anything, and they're walking around wondering where everybody is, they ambush them with everything and anything they got. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They find every single tarp at their disposal, any ones that they can spare, really, and get every single thing that they can think of to try and make sure that the cars and the tank and every one of the vehicles in Alexandria are in one single spot and they're covered up. So the saviors will not be able to get the tank back, nor will they be able to steal vehicles if the chance arises. Then they go to the armory and get every single weapon that they can. And there'd be quite a bit. There'd be, of course, guns, knives, grenades, flash grenades, everything that you know from The Walking Dead, basically, for whatever person to use, except bar from weapons that Fear the Walking Dead characters have, because they're in the Walking Dead universe and not their own. I mean, they're in the same universe, but you guys get what I'm saying. Their weapons would not be here, like Madison's sledgehammer and stuff. Not to say they wouldn't find a weapon like it, but I'm getting off track. Anyways, then they all stage themselves in the houses, just as the saviors approach Alexandria. Conveniently, with everything going on between the saviors at the sanctuary and Alexandria, they would both have time, both sides, to get everything ready for the opposite side to attack. Now, the saviors, seeing the gates are boarded up, decide only one plan of attack because they feel that if they go in there just, guns blazing, they might end up getting killed because this could be a trap. So they take all their cars and ram through the gates. But Simon and the saviors are very surprised to see and hear nothing. Just complete, utter silence. There's no guns firing. The streets are empty. The entire town looks like it was abandoned. Now, this means either one of two things. Either they've all left, or this is another trap. But they don't get to finish that sentence because then Rick yells, "Now!" And this surprises the saviors. And within the span of a few seconds, the streets are lit up in pure smoke. Smoke grenades have been launched throughout the entirety of Alexandria. So all you can see in this town is nothing but pure smoke. And this blinds every one of the saviors, no matter how many there are. Next, bang, bang! You can hear explosions in the streets. Grenades are being thrown from all angles. RPGs, explosions, you name it, they're being thrown in the streets of Alexandria. Not damaging the houses, but damaging the streets and killing pretty much all the saviors. Now, it kills all of the ones that we know to be just, small, not really important. But then we get to the main ones, which would be still small saviors, which would be Laura, Alicia, because, she's still around from the militia, Gavin, Regina, Jared, Justin, and Arat. Plus the other bunches of saviors that were small and not really important. But we have survivors. Simon, Pete, Morales, Tara, and Megan. The 5 last people standing of the saviors, injured but alive. Now Rick has a choice to make, because some of these people seem worth sparing. But he knows a lot of them are going to cause trouble. And a lot of the group wants to just kill all the rest of these 5 saviors, but Rick then sees the kid next to Tara and decides, you know what? We're going to look through the 5 of them, and see which ones are actually worth sparing. So, of course, Tara and Megan are spared because Rick assumes either Megan is Tara's daughter or her sister or just someone she cares for. So she gets to live. And she didn't seem the most harmful out of every one of the other saviors that attacked them, which you couldn't really tell from the streets before they threw the smoke grenades, but that's beside the point. Morales is spared for being an old member of the group and Rick still caring about him, although others feel differently. Pete is, of course, killed, but he is really... At first he thinks that, oh, he's going to be spared, but no, he gets really surprised whenever he gets completely gunshotted down by Daryl. Because, he is the brother of the one that had the tank, put guns to him, had a bunch of militia after Mitch fired the tank the first time, and then Mitch shot Carl in the eye and broke Daryl's hand. It's a whole thing, so Pete dies. Even though he was a softer than his brother, it really doesn't matter. Pete would die here. Simon? Oh, there's no question. Rick would beat him down with Lucille until his face looked like a shriveled up bloody mess. Basically Negan. So, well, not Negan himself, but you guys get what I mean. But anyways, Rick would definitely not spare Simon here, nor would I think in any scenario ever would he want to spare him. And with that, the Savior arc has officially come to an end, and the few Saviors, being Tara, Megan, and Morales, get to live, and the rest are completely annihilated. Back at the hilltop, which we will cut to with that group, Maggie and her baby are cared for safely by Dr. Carson, so she gets out of this okay, like she did before. Nothing changes. But Carl, see, he gets his eye taken out a season later. So he's not getting cared for at Alexandria this time. He's getting cared for at Hilltop. But he does still pull through, and he gets the bandage and everything like that. So he is still alive here. Gregory is very unsure as to if the Saviors, even without Negan, will still be a threat, and whether to still honor Rick's deal, because I feel that they would still make it, kind of, even in this scenario. But Madison assures him that even though they don't have confirmation yet from, Rick or anybody else, she is sure, from all they've been through, without Negan, the Saviors are no match for Rick and the rest of their people. And soon enough, on their walkies, which I feel that they would have, they get confirmation that the Saviors have been completely annihilated, albeit 3 of them spared. Now, back at Alexandria, Rick knows that besides Hilltop and Alexandria, kind of, because they weren't really conquered, there has to be other communities out there that Negan found and controlled, and he wants to let them know that the threat of Negan is over, and that they can all work together to try and, make a future. And Tara decides to explain all of the communities that Negan has conquered over the years, especially since she helped out with pretty much all of them. So, that's exactly what we're going to get into. The kingdom is first, and once the group gets there, it would be anyone really, it doesn't matter. They meet up with Daniel, because he's there, and he's the one who rescued Carol this time instead of Morgan, and they're told the information, and so is Ezekiel. We get to meet him for the first time, really, and this would definitely prevent a lot of deaths, because this is just the start of Season 7, basically, if not just a little bit into it. So, not too much has happened in the other communities, really. Besides, Hilltop and Alexandria, obviously. Oh, and feel like I should point this out here. Obviously, there's going to be no Ezekiel and Carol as of this point, because Daniel and Carol have been a thing since the start of the series. So, just thought I'd throw that out there. Anyways, then we get to the Scavengers. And while I feel that it would be hard for them to accept the fact that Negan and the Saviors are gone, I feel that they would come around eventually. It's just knowing Jadis and them, it would take some time, most likely. But just Rick shows Lucille to them, I feel that would make Jadis and them shut their mouths pretty easily. You just show Lucille to any of the groups that don't really, believe, and just show them Lucille. That's the basic answer. Not saying that that would be what has to happen, saying it could happen. Anyway, Heath, who went to Oceanside instead of Tara this time, goes ahead and goes to Oceanside and explains to him the whole thing himself. And even though Natanya did not want Heath to return and doesn't really truly believe that Negan and the Saviors are all gone, she decides to trust him, and she says that they're not ready to be out with other communities for now, but she says that their community will take time to think on it. And with that, I will now list off the survivors for who have made it past their original deaths. Carl, Heath, Dale, Beth, Lori, Denise, Olivia, Deanna, Jesse, Sam, Alicia, and Sasha. Now, those are just the main ones. But people like from the Kingdom and stuff like that, and the Scavengers, I'm not going to include every single person, mainly because a lot of them are just unimportant small characters. But you guys get the gist of who the main ones are. I don't really have to include them in a roster. Anyways, Carl and Enid, their relationship grows more, and it would be a later development because of Carl and Sophia being around, liking each other for the longest time. Eugene would craft bullets for the community instead of Negan, obviously, in this timeline, which he's done in several of my stories. Gabriel would never lose his sight because he wouldn't have been abandoned by Gregory, and that whole thing would have never happened. Rick has Lucille here, so stay tuned for future parts of that for the remainder and, the remainder of the series. Morgan eventually visits the Kingdom and teaches Henry and Benjamin the stick. Rosita and Spencer eventually shack up, because it happened originally, and Abraham and Sasha, Abraham isn't around, but Rosita and Spencer were still a thing even after that, and Sasha, even though she does not have Bob or Abraham, and is obviously going to feel down about this and feeling like her original character development, that's where Heath comes in. Because remember, Heath and Sasha have had a few moments in the story. They protected each other against the Saviors back at the satellite outpost with Paula and such, and they would most likely have time around each other. So, they get into a relationship. Tara, becoming a full-fledged kind of good guy, eventually gets into a relationship with Denise, which would be a pretty much either season or season and a half later than both Denise's original death and when they got into their original relationship in the, original story. Morales tries to reconnect with the group that he once was a part of and the group that is now. And even though it's kind of hard to get used to at first, he does eventually grow to it. Sadiq gets rescued by the group. It doesn't matter who it is. He'd get rescued. The bridge would be more than rebuilt because we would have a monstrous amount of survivors. So there's no telling that the bridge would be able to be completed. Aaron and Eric are still going to be a thing because Eric is still alive because no situation has put him in a dying situation yet. And eventually, I know we're cutting past a lot of points, but it's just how it is because of the story. Magna's group is eventually rescued, and we get to that time skip. And Rosita and Eugene's not going to hurt his leg here, and that's because Spencer's here, and I've included that in more than one story. With Spencer being around, that means Eugene would not hurt his leg, and the three of them would get out of there together, rather than Eugene being left behind. Now, here's where we end off. What will happen with the Whisperers? Everything with the Saviors, true, we got some casualties, we got some, injured people, obviously, and we have a lot of survivors and changes to the story, especially with Madison and her group around. But with the Whisperers, will anything major change? or will it be complete dropout for the Whisperer arc and Alpha in general? And that's where we're going to be leaving things for the moment. Hope you guys enjoyed this part and are enjoying the series so far. Spoiler alert, the Whisperer arc will be at least somewhat entertaining. It will not be like totally like mesmerizing, but trust me, you will not be disappointed with the results of the Whisperer arc in this timeline, because Madison and her family throughout the entirety of the series have mattered a lot. But anyways, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.